Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, April 30th, 2026, and this is episode 9 of Derek Talks Real Estate. Coming to you as always, live from the worldwide headquarters of Derek Talks Real Estate in Locust, North Carolina. And we are coming to you from Studio A today. Um, Pardon me. As always, Derek Talks Real Estate is unscripted. We're just going to have a little chat. We're going to kind of talk today about what you can expect out of pocket wise for expenses when you're buying a house. We had kind of talked a little bit in Tuesday's episode about some of the things that are necessary for buying a house, and when we came to the psychology of waiting and stuff. Um, and so today we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about some of those items that we touched on, like due diligence fees, earnest money, some other areas that you could have some out of pocket expenses prior to closing. We will, of course, mention some of the costs that are going to, happen at closing that you need to get to the attorney. But these are things that you're going to have to pay prior to going to closing that you need to be prepared for, and not just say, "Hey, I can just wait and pay that at closing," and it be part of what I have to wire the attorney for the closing. Um, so the main thing that we're going to talk about when it comes to fees that are out of your pocket, we're going to start with some of the big ones. So when you do an offer to purchase in the state of North Carolina, there are two checks that you have to be prepared to write within 36 to 72 hours of going under contract. Technically, one of those checks is supposed to be presented with the contract, but since we do most contracts electronically now, a lot of times we're not as picky on that. But they do that does need to be paid within typically 24 hours, and that is your due diligence fee. So we talked a little bit last week about the negotiation, or on Tuesday about negotiation and due diligence fee being part of that negotiation. So with the due diligence fee, that basically is the fee that you're going to pay the seller to take the home off the market. I typically tell my buyers between due diligence and earnest funding, we need to be around 1% of what the ask price is, or what our offer price is. So if we're offering $400,000, we need to be prepared to put $4,000 down. So first thing you need to know is that you need to have at least $4,000 in the bank, because you're going to have to write a check to the seller, and you're going to have to write a check to the attorney who is doing the closing, because that's where that earnest money is going to sit. So, due diligence money, what is it? Due diligence money is a non refundable fee that you as a buyer are paying the seller to take the home off the market when they accept your offer, and for you to go in and do your due diligence. So, we're talking about your inspections. If you need a contractor to come in because you know that there's something you're going to need to have fixed, or something you're going to want to do different to the house that may not necessarily be something we ask for during repairs, more of a personal thing than a safety, health, or structure thing. Um, for example, when we purchased our house, we knew we wanted all the carpet pulled up. So one of the things that we did is we had somebody come out and tell us how much money they would charge us to pull all that up. Those are things that we did during the due diligence period. We had our inspection done, so you'll want to have your inspection done. You want to also make sure you have enough time in that due diligence period, if there's an issue with the system, that you can kind of go in and have somebody come out and inspect that system, and you may have a charge there. But the due diligence fee, to kind of come back to it, that's just what you're paying that person for you to have the right to come in and do those items. So I typically try to make the due diligence fee for my buyers as low as possible. I'm trying to make sure that you have as little non-refundable funds tied up into this home as possible. When I'm helping the seller, I want that due diligence fee to be as high as possible because I want them to not have to, um, worry about somebody coming in and just walking away from the home because they don't have a lot of money tied up in it, right? So, for example, when I'm helping a buyer, we're typically going to offer $500 due diligence to start. And if you, as the seller, accept that, great. If something comes up and we need to walk away, my client's only losing $500. As the listing agent, I'm going to want to see that number higher based on what the house is and the value of the property. My minimum there is typically 1,000, but I'd love to see it higher. I have one that I have under contract right now that they gave us a $20,000 due diligence check. That's non-refundable money. They are not walking away from the purchase of that home. So we know we're pretty much going to sell it. And we know that as the seller that we have the upper hand in negotiations when it comes to due diligence. So again, I'm kind of shifting down one of those rabbit holes. So let me come back to where we want to be. So when again we're talking about that money, that's money you need to be prepared to have. So again, $400,000 house, expect $4,000 between due diligence and earnest money. Now, the earnest money, again, that money sits at the attorney. So when the property is in due diligence period, if you as a buyer come across things that make you want to walk away from the home, or we can't come to an agreement with the seller on some negotiations, then you can turn around and walk away and you get that earnest money back, as long as we are still in the due diligence period. If we are outside of the due diligence period and you decide to walk, then you give that money up unless it is because an FHA or a VA appraisal came in low and you and the seller cannot come to an agreement. Then at that point, you get that earnest money back. So earnest money, again, is what's going to make up the other difference to get us to that 1% total. So again, on a $400,000 house, you can expect $4,000 split up between due diligence and earnest money. So what you need to do is make sure when you get your pre-approval, you and your agent have that conversation about what you can expect and need to have written check wise within the first 48 to 36, 48 hours of being under contract. All right. So those are the main things that you have to look at. Now, what else do you have to pay for prior to closing? So during that inspection period, you're going to have, or due diligence period, you should have an inspection. Now, that inspection is something that you're going to have to pay for up front. Most inspections are going to run anywhere from $400 to $800, depending on the size of the property and depending on what all kinds of things you have done in the inspection. If you're just doing a base inspection where I just need you to come in and take a look at the house and that's it, then chances are you're going to be on the lower end of that scale. But I highly recommend everyone to get a radon inspection done. That's going to be some extra cost. My firm requires that you have a pest inspection done. And if you don't, you have to sign a waiver saying that you did not want to have that pest inspection, because we've had too many people that haven't had the pest inspection and then find out that they had termites in the property and they want to come back on us. Well, why didn't you advise me to have it? Well, we did. And here's the paper where it says that you declined it and you did not want to have a pest inspection done. So those are things that you would have to pay for up front. Now, let's say from the inspection report that we get, it comes back and tells us there may be an issue with the roof. There may be an issue with something in the structure of the home. There may be an issue with the HVAC. At that point, we may want to have someone come out and take a look at those items. And some of those people are going to charge you a fee to come out and take a look at it. Now, usually that fee that they're going to charge you, they're going to reimburse you if you end up having some work done and you hire them to do that work. But their time is not free. So they're going to charge you to come out and take a look at it. Now, if you're buying a house that has a pool, I'm going to recommend you get a pool inspection done. And again, that's going to be extra money. If you are buying a house that has a septic system or a well, then we're going to recommend you get a septic inspection done and a water inspection done. Most lenders, if the property has a well, are going to require a well inspection. They're going to make sure that there's no chloroform, no E. coli, or any of that type stuff that's in the well. If there is, typically we're going to go to the seller and ask them to fix that. And that's one of the few things that I'm going to request that a seller get done prior to the home and not do credits, because we can't really do the credits for the well because that has to be fixed before the lender will lend on the property. So it's almost one of those requirements to an appraisal. So those are some of the out-of-pocket expenses that you can expect. Some of the other things that you can look at for out-of-pocket expenses is, like I said, any kind of contractor you're going to have come out and take a look at something and give you an estimate. They may require you to pay them for that, them coming out. And again, they may reimburse you that or take that off what they're going to charge. So upfront, purchasing a home, and we're not even talking about closing costs for your loan or things like that. Depending on the property that you're buying, I would say that you need to expect to have anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 available to pay for certain things that you need to do prior to closing on the home. So you need to make sure that you have that money available. Make sure you are prepared financially and mentally for going out and taking a look at houses. Okay, so pretty short one today. That's pretty simple. Now, there are other expenses that are part of the closing that you pay at closing, so we're not going to really dive into those today. But for example, you're talking about loan origination fees, what everybody considers closing costs, things like that. We can have a discussion with that at a later point. All right, so there it is. Quick little episode 9, probably the quickest one we've done. Appreciate you. As always, if you need to get a hold of me, you can reach me at derektalksrealestate@gmail.com. You can follow me on Derek Talks Real Estate here on YouTube, Derek Talks Real Estate on Facebook, Derek Talks Real Estate on Substack. All of those is DEREK and then Talks Real Estate. Please hit the subscribe button. Love to have some people that would send me some questions. Send me a message. Tell me what you would like to hear me talk about or what you would like to have discussed. And we can kind of go from there. So appreciate you guys. Again, this is Thursday, April 30th. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Can't believe tomorrow is May. And we will see you next Tuesday. Take care.